Good night.
A spectacular escape from communist Cuba to freedom in America. In Russia, sky-high prices could cost Boris Yeltsin his job. And America's public transit systems suck it to commuters. This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening. I'm Connie Chung, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Thousands of Cubans have fled to freedom in America, but few escapes have been quite as dramatic and daring as the one today. They came by air, but somehow managed to evade Cuba's sophisticated radar system. Doug Tennell has more on how they did it.
On the runway of an airport in South Florida, 34 men, women, and children from still communist Cuba found freedom today.
Wonderful, beautiful.
The exhilaration of a successful escape on board an aging Russian-made helicopter made it easy for these defectors to forget their fears. Me scared? I was guiding them in, she says. Look, I told them there is land. It was the culmination of months of secret planning, including disguises and coded phone messages. Twice before, they had tried to flee and failed. But early this morning, a Cuban Airlines helicopter lifted off from a beach resort outside Havana with its pilot and 2 friends on board. The crew made one stop to pick up their families and then flew north, skimming the wave tops until U.S. Customs aircraft intercepted them and escorted the Cuban helicopter to an airport in South Florida. There was no radio contact, and no American authorities could be sure of the helicopter's mission until 34 Cubans stepped out and requested political asylum, which is usually granted. It was in many respects a high-tech escape, a helicopter instead of a raft through shark-infested waters. And some of the people on board had actually called ahead to family members here in the United States to say they were going to try to make a run for it. They used a code saying they were going to the doctor's office for a blood pressure checkup. A record number of Cubans have fled their country in the last year, and many more are expected in the days and weeks ahead. Shortly after landing today, one woman borrowed a reporter's cellular phone to call her relatives here in the United States. We're at the airport, she announced. The airport in Miami. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Miami.
The Bush administration said today it now supports full membership in the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank right away for Russia and 5 other former Soviet states. This is a change in U.S. policy, and it could mean billions of dollars in loans to the republics. A top Russian advisor is predicting that Boris Yeltsin could soon be forced out because his drastic economic measures are a disaster. In only a day, prices have skyrocketed, and other former Soviet republics are now joining Russia in lifting price controls. Tom Fenton reports.
As inflation hit more than 500% today, opponents of President Boris Yeltsin called on his government to resign. An advisor to the Russian vice president said the government is in deep trouble.
I think that if everything will go like it happens these last 2 days, the late January will be the date for the resignation.
The bonanza of goods the Russians were promised has so far turned out to be a limited amount of old stock at new prices, like the unappetizing chickens we found on this Moscow street corner. Show this in America, the woman says. Look what they've done to us. Elsewhere in state-run stores, it was mostly the same. It's a complete rip-off, this man says. One of these scrawny chickens would cost him a week of his retirement pay. At Moscow's leading department store, shoppers figured it would cost them almost a week's average wages to buy a woman's blouse, 10 months for a wool dress,